Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Today, we're going to do a little bit something different. Can you hear me? Oh, hold on a second. Let me just mute the YouTube link. So, I need to become more of a professional. There we go. All right. So, while we're waiting for everyone to come join in, excellent. Hello, Patricia. Hello, Paul. Hello, Jorgen. It's a bit late for you, Jorgen, for sure. Hello, Brian. Hello, Chris. Chris, no, we're not gonna be stupid, and we're not going to buy real estate. I'm gonna do a video on that because of you, so you can look forward to that. Today, I've got some of my favorite tobacco. Um, Tobacco when it's loose for a pipe looks like this, right? And I like smoking a pipe. It's new for me, but I like smoking a pipe every now and then. Today I felt like smoking a pipe with you because instead of lighting up a cigar, which I always have emergency cigar just in case something doesn't go right with the pipe. But um, we need to talk, guys. We need to talk because there's people out here that are not really taking this seriously. People are not taking seriously how little effort it would take for Bitcoin to go absolutely bullish as fuck. Um, so this pipe tobacco is from James J. Fox in London, which is now become it was taken over, but it's now James J. Fox, and it's where Winston Churchill used to buy his cigars, or used to get his cigars and tobacco from in London. You can actually still go to JJ Fox, and I highly recommend that you do that. You do go to JJ Fox um, if you're ever in London, and go see the cigar museum and the tobacco museum they have downstairs, where you can actually sit in Winston Churchill's chair, his original chair at the store. Has anyone ever been there? Has anyone actually ever been to James J. Fox in London? Let me know in the comments if you have. Might be a little too bougie for my American friends that are used to smoking Dominican cigars, but we might as well ask the question. Right. So the pipe is packed, and with a pipe, you must use a soft flame. So I have my favorite lighter, and it's very, very simple. As long as you don't look at it and speak so that it blows out. Just lighting the tobacco, letting it catch. Again, I'm still learning about pipes. I have not been smoking pipes for as long as I've been smoking cigars. Hey, Travis, if cigars don't agree with you, you know what that means, right? You're the one that's wrong. That's what that means. So I have my pipe. Still needs a little bit. I still haven't mastered properly yet how to. That should do. Otherwise, we always have my trusted cigar. And I've got some beautiful tea from Harrods in London too. It's my favorite tea, number 15, Knightsbridge, it's called, if you want to check it out. So, we need to talk about bullish as fuck. We need to talk about why people are not paying attention, and how easily Bitcoin could go bullish as fuck, and how little money it would take for Bitcoin to go bullish as fuck. First things first, if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, please subscribe. It takes one click and it lets the algorithm know that people are actually interested in Bitcoin. And that's not just for my channel. You want to go do that for every Bitcoin channel that you love and any Bitcoin channel that you appreciate. So please do that. And secondly, I want you to grab a notepad, because you're going to need a notepad. You're going to need a notepad because we're going to talk through some numbers, and I want you to actually do the math with me and understand exactly what the hell is going on. People don't know what the hell is going on here. People are investing or slowly getting their foot into Bitcoin, or doing stupid things like buying real estate with $1 million of cash, thinking that they're going to put the cash flow into Bitcoin. By the time that cash flow accumulates enough Bitcoin's at a new stratospheric high. It makes no sense if you're buying real estate with money, with your own money down, to own that real estate at this point, if you truly understand Bitcoin. If you don't truly understand Bitcoin, I can understand why you're talking about real estate. If you understand Bitcoin, the only way you should get into real estate is when you can put no money down into real estate, and then the deal starts making some sense. Until then, it's completely irrelevant. Bitcoin will outperform any real estate deal if a capital injection is needed, right? It might give you, that little boomer part of your brain. It might give you the ability for the boomer part of your brain to uh, to feel good, but it is not the most efficient investment at this point, and there is a couple reasons for that. So what I'm going to cover in this stream is my theory on how Bitcoin gets to $7.3 million a coin with just a 1% movement of a particular asset class, whose boss is Larry Fink. And we obviously understand now that Larry Fink is now the latest bullish as fuck boy, moon boy on Bitcoin. That's who Larry Fink is. That CEO of the Moon Boys is Larry Fink at this point. No, Larry Fink is the CEO of the world's most aggressive, successful, uh, and powerful asset management firm, and that's BlackRock. BlackRock isn't launching new real estate ETFs. BlackRock is launching new Bitcoin ETFs. BlackRock has obviously filed for this ETF, and people still, by the way, don't understand how important that BlackRock ETF application is for Bitcoin. It's extremely important. But here's the thing. The real thing that people don't realize. I'm going to try and see. This is the first time I'm doing this right now. I'm going to share my screen, right? I'm going to share my screen. Let's see if this fucking works. Because this could quite easily be a shit show. All right, it's turning into a shit show. So give me a second and we'll get to it. This pipe doesn't seem to be working. I don't think I've People wonder why I like tobacco. One of the reasons why I like tobacco is that it is one of the things that has never changed. Tobacco is tobacco is tobacco. It's one of those old ancient things. And so there is so much to learn about tobacco. While I have mastered cigars, I'm still trying to learn about pipes. I'm still trying to learn about the art of smoking a pipe. How do you smoke a pipe? What do you smoke a pipe with, etc., etc. So yes, tobacco is a sacred plant. I completely agree. Now, one other thing I would like you to do before I get to sharing this screen is take the link to this YouTube and please tweet it out. Please share it to the people that you like. Because remember, even once this live stream is done, if they can't see it right now, even once the live stream is done, they'll be able to, at that link, be able to get access to it. So please take the link and please share it. And if you're new here for the first time, please subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it. We're going to be talking about, I'm going to break down to you exactly how Bitcoin gets to $7.3 million a coin with one new revelation that I came across. This is without, without anyone stopping buying real estate, because I know that triggers people. By the way, the more that triggers you, the more I know that is the thing that I need to talk about. And why I know that real estate is the thing I need to talk about anyway is because my parents are real estate investors. My parents are real estate investors. My dad built his majority of his wealth through real estate. And me having the conversation with him that real estate is finished, real estate is done, real estate is going to be for barely generating any sustainable cash flow for the next 20 years, he had the same reaction. So I know exactly what the pain points are, because part of the reason why I create content, if you've ever heard my story, is for my parents. It's for people like my parents who have done the right thing, people like your parents who have done the right thing for 35 years, right? And when I say that Bitcoin is needed by the rich more than it's needed by the poor, that triggers people. But it's the truth, because people like my parents and your parents, I'm talking about people who are, worth one, two, three, four, five, maybe $6, $7, $8 million. I'm not talking about someone who's worth $200 billion when I say rich. I'm talking about the average millionaire next door in the United States, in the UK. Someone who has done the right thing for 40 years, thinking that if they buy property, if they, continue to save, continue to live frugally, and continue to, buy more property and buy more property and buy more property and read Rich Dad Poor Dad and go to the seminars and do all this stuff, I'm gonna be okay. That's who I record and create content for. Because if that is you, you need to realize that you are not going to be okay. Because when you price real estate in the amount of debasement that's happened, not in inflation, in debasement, what you realize is that the value of your property portfolio should, at this moment, at least my parents' one, should at this moment be 80 to 90% higher in pounds than it is, in order to maintain the value that was put into it. 80 to 90% higher. That's no joke. And there is no way that property is going to go 80 to 90% higher, because there'll be revolutions in the street. There'll be revolutions in the street. The governments can't afford to allow that. So what do governments do? They start yanking up the supply lever. Remember, every asset has two levers: supply and demand. Bitcoin is the first time in human history where that supply lever is fixed. You can't do anything with that supply lever, right? Um, and yes, as Shashank said, the price of real estate is already through the roof. Absolutely. It's not going to go higher because governments can't afford it to go higher. So real estate has been a terrible investment for maintaining value. Maintaining price against inflation, maybe it's been decent, but maintaining value against debasement, it's been awful. So, and that's what the main wealth where my parents, your parents, everybody else has been, and maybe you're listening, right? Has been created. That's why I record content. And there's been a tectonic shift in one of the areas where people like my parents, people like your parents, people in their 50s have their wealth stored, and that could lead to a Bitcoin price of $7.3 million a coin very, very, very quickly. This takes a few things for us to understand, though, so that's what we're going to go through. So again, please subscribe to the channel as I'm gonna light up my trusted cigar instead. So I've got a cigar here that is, it's called Paul Larrañaga Petite Corona. It's a pretty small cigar. I don't have long today. It's a pretty small cigar. It's a 6-year-old cigar, so it was rolled maybe 7 years ago. The box stamp on it is 6 years, and it's been sitting in my humidor in London for 6 years before I have the pleasure to smoke it right now. Paul Larrañaga is one of the old school Cuban brands. It's it always comes and goes, but it's not one of the more popular brands like Cohiba. But back in the day, Paul Larrañaga had a very, very rich history and is, it used to be a premier brand of Cuba. And now they have a small selection of sticks under the mark of Paul Larrañaga. And it is one of my favorites because of the old school flavor of it, of the cigar. So there's a couple things that we need to understand. Number one, we need to understand where the money is. We need to understand who's making the decisions. We need to understand where the decisions are being made, and we need to understand who is influencing the decision maker. Don't you guys agree? Don't you think that we need to know all these things before we ascertain whether the capital will move into Bitcoin or not? This is extremely important to understand, right? Yes, you can say that the capital, the capital that's going to move into Bitcoin is going to move in from normal people. Normal people are a fraction of the amount of capital that's out there in the world. Normal people like you and I, self-managing our assets, is a tiny fraction of what's actually going on. Familiarity. There we go. So, tiny fraction of what's actually going on. Right. I'm going to share my screen because you need to see this. Right. I'm pretty sure that right now you can. Let me see. Right, let's see whether this is live or not. I know you're seeing me right now because I'm trying to test whether. All right. Anyway, we're gonna get. I'm pretty sure that you can see this. This is an article that reveals that the top 500 asset managers in the world are now controlling $131 trillion of wealth. $131 trillion of wealth. That's October 2022. And what this means is that and I tweeted this, by the way, so if you want to see it, you can go to my Twitter and see it. What this, Chris said, can't see anything. Let's see what is going on here. Oh, it helps if I do this, right? There you go. I apologize. So the top 500 asset managers reach a new $131 trillion record, right? And that is of October 2022. $131 trillion under management. Now, why is this important, you might ask? Why is it even important that these asset managers are managing this money? It's because of what we started talking about. It's because of the new CEO of the Bullish as Fuck Club, which is Larry Fink. And Larry Fink, I just realized I don't have the comments playing on the side. So please, any new comments that come up, I believe it will be shown to the side. Right. So Larry Fink, who is the new CEO of the Bullish as Fuck Club, is the boss of all of these 500 asset managers. Do you guys understand that? Just let me know yes in the comments if you understand that, because you really got to understand how the game works. These people don't think for themselves, right? An asset manager's role when you're managing clients, your role is to receive an instruction about what is the right thing to do, where is the right place to put your client's money, and then you call your clients up and you say, hey, we've got a great new idea. We think that your portfolio should have XYZ percentage of tech stocks in it. So we're going to diversify that. And then you go, okay, cool, I trust you. Or you say, because you think you're a smart ass, you say, hey, what are the earnings of that? And then they say, oh, the earnings are XYZ. And you say, oh, okay, then, because you just want to sound like you know what you're talking about. Most of these people that have their wealth being managed by these people don't know what they're talking about. The goal that these people have is to just maintain the amount of wealth that their clients give them, right? And anything extra they can take in fees. So Larry Fink is their boss, in essence. The direction that BlackRock sets will be the direction that the majority of assets managed in the world will take. Why? Because there's no career risk associated with that. There is, because Larry Fink said so. BlackRock said so. Larry Fink said that people should invest in ESG. So therefore, everyone is investing in ESG because Larry Fink said if you want capital from BlackRock, you better fucking invest in some ESG. Well, Larry Fink is now the CEO of the Bullish as Fuck Club on Bitcoin. And Larry Fink believes that there is a large interest coming from around the world for Bitcoin. What that means is the downstream effect of that is that Larry Fink, whose firm manages, I think, $7 or $8 trillion of assets, will send a message out saying BlackRock recommends that our clients take a position in Bitcoin. So now that $7 trillion, a certain percentage of that will run into Bitcoin because Larry, the CEO of the Bullish as Fuck Club, told them to do it because they don't really know what the hell they're doing. They're waiting for Daddy Larry to say something, right? So Daddy Larry comes along and says, hey, Bitcoin, go. And then all of these downstream, these 500 firms downstream, turn around and say, wait a second, Larry Fink, Fidelity, Cathie Wood, all of these people are saying Bitcoin. We should get our people also into Bitcoin because there's no career risk anymore. I'm not going against what Larry Fink said. Larry Fink's the CEO, the smartest, most ruthless, money management firm in the world, and they hated Bitcoin up to now. So all of these 500 people who can't think for themselves, 500 firms that can't think for themselves, weren't recommending Bitcoin. Now they will be because Larry Fink and the gang is now all for Bitcoin. So when you take the fact that the top 500 asset managers control $130 trillion worth of wealth, is it reasonable to assume that if there is a new asset that comes along, that the head honcho of the whole organization, who is now bullish as fuck on the asset, when he says, okay, we're going to go into Bitcoin, is it reasonable to assume that 1% of this asset allocation of $130 trillion over the next decade might say, you know what, Larry's right. Larry's right. Let's get into Bitcoin too. 1%. Can we agree on that, guys? Does that sound reasonable to you? Who thinks 1% sounds reasonable? Right? There's so many people saying that there's so much of this moon boy bullish as fuck mindset and we're all unreasonable. Let's say 1%, right? Considering gold has like a 3 to 5% allocation in a portfolio, let's just say 1%. Okay? How many people think that that's a reasonable, conservative, good thought process. 1%. I want you to let me know in the comments. Frank said probably 5% or more easily. Let's ignore that. Let's ignore that, Frank. Let's say 1%. Can we agree on 1%? Larry said, I said a third of 1%. Really, Larry? I know you got the same first name, so you got to start thinking the same too. Really? You mean the CEO of the head honcho firm on the block says this is the asset, get your investors into this asset, and you think it's going to be a third of 1%? Come on, I think that's being a bit too bearish. I can understand being conservative, but I think I'm being conservative at 1%. What do you got? Come on, guys. 1%. Can we agree on 1%? Heisenberg said, "What's your time frame for the $5 to $10 million Bitcoin? 3 years sounds great in my opinion." I love that. That's being bullish as fuck for real. Right. 1%. I'm going to roll with 1%. 1% of those assets under management, which at 2022, at the end of 2022, is $131 trillion amongst the top 500 asset managers. Kareem said, I think up to 10%. Frank said 1% is conservative. I don't care what you guys think. You guys are too bullish as fuck. Okay? You guys are way too bullish as fuck. I'm going with 1%. Okay? Going with 1%. Travis said I'll roll with 1%. That's my guy. Right. We're rolling with 1%. This is why, pay attention. This is where you need your notepad. This is where you focus. This is the where you're going to get the understanding of my thesis on Bitcoin. Everyone's talking about Plan B and his model and the stock to flow and all this other stuff, and the stock to flow model being all shit and everything else. I'm a fan of the idea of stock to flow. I'm a fan of Plan B. I think that 1% of worldwide assets under management, after Larry Fink has said he is now bullish as fuck on the asset, is a reasonable, conservative target. Right? Now here's the amazing part. Here's what you need to know. Let me just make sure that this is sharing. I'm going to turn this, and there we go. Okay. Right. This is when I came to my conclusion in 2021, what was going to happen. This is an article, and there's several articles because it's the same content. On March 18th, 2021, so near the peak of the Bitcoin price or Bitcoin market value. Okay. Bank of America says flows affect Bitcoin more than gold and treasuries, right? And it says have $93 million, you may be able to boost Bitcoin's price by 1%. That's very important. Keep those two numbers in mind. $93 million equals a 1% increase in the market price of Bitcoin. This is the most important quote that you must understand in the history of the financial price movement of this asset right here. I'm going to read it. Okay. Bitcoin is extremely sensitive to increased dollar demand. The B of A, Bank of America strategist said in a note on Wednesday, we estimate a net inflow into Bitcoin of just $93 million would result in price appreciation of 1%. This is in March of 2021. Pay attention. While the similar figure for gold would be closer to $2 billion or 20 times higher. So let's pause there. March of 2021, right? So let's go look at the chart. March of 2021, which is this candle here, this month here, right? So it's pretty much close to the peak of the market. The peak of the market was like, let's say $1.1 trillion. $1.1 trillion total market cap. They say just $93 million in would result in a price appreciation of the total market by 1%. 1% of $1.1 trillion is $11 billion. That means a $93 million injection at that time, where the supply was the tightest because everyone was buying, was resulting in a $11 billion market capitalization increase, according to Bank of America. This is not like British Huddle on Twitter or Plan B on Twitter. This is Bank of America. Now, there's obviously people that are going to say you have to believe Bank of America, but I think you can understand the tightness of the supply of this asset. So yes, we might not say it's 118 to 1, right? But we could say it might be half of that. Bank of America might be 50% right, which is still insane compared to everything else, right? And they say while the similar figure for gold will be closer to $2 billion. So what that means is, to move gold's market cap by 1%, you would need $2 billion, not 93 million. 20 times more capital is needed to move gold's price by 1% compared to Bitcoin, because of the finality of the supply on the asset. Now, the rest of it is on the treasuries. We don't need to pay attention to that at this moment in time. What does this mean, though? What this means is that when $131 trillion is being managed by asset managers who are under the direction of Larry Fink, and they are about to be told, go, put your clients into Bitcoin. If 1% of that capital moves, that is $1.3 trillion. $1.3 trillion if that capital moves, right? $1.3 trillion is 1% of 131 trillion, right? Trying to stay away from complicated math at this point. Okay. Well, it's the tweet I put out yesterday, which everyone lost their minds over because they were like, it's impossible that this could happen. If $1.3 trillion goes into Bitcoin, and by the way, right now, the supply of Bitcoin is so much less than it was. The supply of Bitcoin in this cycle is the lowest that it's ever been. The supply of Bitcoin right now is the lowest that it's ever been in any cycle. Bitcoin is flying off of exchanges faster than the previous cycle, faster than the cycle before that. This is the tightest that Bitcoin supply is going to be in this cycle, right? So let's say $1.3 trillion goes into Bitcoin. And let's say B of A is right and Bitcoin has a 1 to 118 multiple, which is exactly what we spoke about before, right? It takes $93 million to move the Bitcoin price by $11 billion. That means that $1.3 trillion going into Bitcoin at this point could mean a $153 trillion Bitcoin market cap, or $7.3 million per Bitcoin. $7.3 million per Bitcoin, with just a 1% move of assets under management, with just a 1% move of assets directly under the influence of Larry Fink. This is without all the real estate boys getting out of real estate. This is without anyone getting out of their art position. This is without anyone getting out of their treasury position. This is without anyone getting out of their stock position. This is without you and I having a conversation about this. This is one man and the downstream effect of one firm resulting in assets under management moving. Assets under management, you don't even have to have a conversation with your clients under certain circumstances. It is the asset manager believes that this asset is best for this portfolio, so the asset manager makes that allocation of 1%. That is how quickly this capital could move. It doesn't require anyone's permission. It doesn't require anything. It doesn't require anyone to learn how to custody an asset. It require anyone to learn how to, where do I buy it? Oh, do I use Coinbase? Oh, do I use this wallet or that wallet, and have all the mental masturbations around which wallet to use? It doesn't require any of that. It requires the 401ks and everything else that are invested and controlled by these asset management firms that now control $131 trillion to make one decision. We want a 1% allocation in Bitcoin. That's it. This is how simple it can be. This is how simple I believe it will be, by the way. This is how simple that this is how I'm going to answer that question in a second. This is how simple it can be and it will be, because most assets in the world are not bearer held. Yes, Bitcoin, it sounds like a great idea that everyone's going to hold their Bitcoin. We're all going to hold our Bitcoin. We're all going to have our own wallets. We're all going to walk around the streets and spend our Bitcoin and this, that, and the other. That shit ain't going to happen, right? First step is store of value. In that step of store of value, it's going to be ETF comes out, BlackRock sends the signal, sends the bat signal into the sky. It's going to be a Bitcoin logo in the sky. The question is, can you see it or not, right? They're going to see that logo and they're going to go, right, on the phone. Every client is going to move 1% straight into Bitcoin. This is phenomenal. This requires no more individual Bitcoin education. It requires no one learning how a fucking wallet works. It doesn't require anything changing. It doesn't require real estate being sold. It doesn't require anything. And a 1% movement could lead to a $7.3 million Bitcoin price. Let's assume Bank of America is so off. They're 50% off, right? All the geniuses at Bank of America get together, bang their heads together, and they're still 50% off. Still 7 point something, so it's still $3 million Bitcoin price with a 1% move from here at $30,000. Think about that. Let's assume that they're completely wrong. It's still insanity what is coming, and people are not paying attention to this. I go on Clubhouse and people are talking about stupid shit. I go on Twitter and everyone's worried about Plan B's model. I go, like, worry about this model. Worry about the fact that Larry Fink is about to tell all of the downstream asset managers to allocate a percentage to Bitcoin because it is the smartest thing to do. Wait until they get the ETF and then they start talking about the fact that Bitcoin mining is now green. Wait until the fact they start talking about, oh, all of these ESG assets that we've got, we're now going to make Bitcoin miners eligible for ESG assets, because that would be the best ROI they can generate their clients. Remember, that's what they want. They need the ROI, because if they can't get the ROI, people start pulling capital. So they need the ROI, and the best way for them to get ROI is to make Bitcoin an ESG friendly asset, right? Perceptively. Because if I can say that Bitcoin mining is ESG friendly, then immediately all of the capital that's going into ESG currently fucking losing money goes straight into assets that are going to make money. There we go. Thank you, Chris. 33,900 Bitcoin have been taken off of exchanges in the last 30 days alone. This is the lowest supply of Bitcoin on exchange. Can you guys understand why I'm bullish as fuck? Can you guys understand why Larry Fink is now the CEO of the Bullish as Fuck Club? If you are sitting there and you are not understanding what is going on, and you don't understand why this is happening, how it could happen, etc., I want you to understand one thing. I was in the exact same boat. I thought Bitcoin was a scam. My background, if you don't know my story, my background's in real estate, my background's in gold, my background's in stocks. I'm not a tech nerd that figured out Bitcoin at a very early age and made most of my money through Bitcoin. That's not me. My Bitcoin story started in 2020. As far as I'm concerned, I'm catching up. The only thing that I'm blessed for is I'm blessed because I had money coming into the game. So unlike a lot of people who made their money with Bitcoin and then or people that came in afterwards, I could see the opportunity and then pile into it. That was my blessing, right? But my background is not Bitcoin. I thought this whole thing was a scam when I first saw it in 2017. So I understand when people tell me, "Oh, Bitcoin's a scam." Like I don't understand it. How can this make any sense? I get it, but you better look at the numbers and you better open your eyes real quick because otherwise you're going to miss this. And this is the only asset where, for example, my parents, right? My dad is an immigrant from Kenya to the United Kingdom, right? When he moved, he could have bought 10 properties in the United Kingdom. 30 years later, 40 years later, 20 years later, I grow up, I can also still buy 10 properties in the world, right? And you think, okay, cool. Yeah, they're not going to be in the same area. They might not be the same type of property, but I can still buy 10 properties, right? Your children and your grandchildren will never be able to do that with Bitcoin because it is a finite supply asset. We do not really understand what true finality of supply means. This is why when I say Bitcoin can go to $7 million a coin with a simple 1% move of assets currently under management with the top 500 asset managers, people go, how the fuck does that make any sense? It's because what we're used to is as the price of something goes up, the government issues more permits to build more properties or dig more gold or issue more private equity to then get companies listed in the public markets, right? That is what we're used to. We're used to, oh, I wanted to go buy a Rolex. There's no Rolexes, so Rolex is going to spend the next couple of years upping up their supply chains. You cannot do that with Bitcoin. If $5 trillion wants to go into Bitcoin tomorrow, we know exactly how much Bitcoin there is. We know exactly when it's coming out. We know exactly when it's where it's gone, and that is set for the entirety of the history of Bitcoin. This is the first time that this has ever happened. The real enemy that we have is debasement, not inflation. Understand that and get it right. There is a flood of money coming to Bitcoin. And I guarantee you're going to speak to people who tell you Bitcoin is a scam in 5 years and they don't realize that they're actually invested in Bitcoin because the asset manager managing their wealth is into Bitcoin. For example, I've got a friend, right? And my friend is invested in a fund. And I went and had a look at the fund that he's invested in. And that fund has MicroStrategy in it. He doesn't like Bitcoin. He thinks Bitcoin's stupid. And I said, you're invested in Bitcoin. Your returns are coming from Bitcoin. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, you own MicroStrategy. And he said, what the fuck is MicroStrategy? Just think about this. No, no. Most of the wealth in the world is not bearer held. What do I mean by bearer held? This I am holding right now, that is a bearer held instrument, right? That's what people assume gold is until the GLD ETF came out or until a company buys gold, etc., for you and holds it. This is a bearer held asset. This lighter I bought for £1,000 is today worth £3,500. It's a bearer held asset, right? I hold it, I control it, I decide where it goes, etc. Most assets, most wealth in the world is not bearer held. Why? Because people are worried. What if someone knocks me on the head and steals this lighter? Right? People are worried. So most assets are not bearer held, and Bitcoin also will not be a bearer held instrument for most adoption in the world. It's just not going to be like that. I wish it was, but it will not be like that because this is how the financial systems work. Maybe in 40 years it'd be different, but for right now it won't be like that. And we're at a precipice where Bitcoin is about to be taken on by almost every single person who has assets being managed by someone. And that doesn't have to be a multi-millionaire. It can be someone who is, you know, has a retirement fund, has a student fund, etc. So it is very important to realize that this is going to move with or without you, with or without the education I do, with or without the education anyone else does. I don't give a fuck if there's another Bitcoin podcast or not. It is too late. The big boys are here. Saying that, what I want to do is if anyone has any questions or wants to make any comments, I'm going to put the link to join the chat and you can come in and we can have a chat. But I don't have too long. Can you guys understand why and how easily Bitcoin can go into the millions of dollars? That was my purpose for doing this and having this conversation with you right now. Can you understand why this is the case? And if you can't understand it, you need to understand it. One of the ways that you can understand it is scan that QR code that I just put up. It is my free, completely free thinking and thesis on how Bitcoin goes to $5 million a coin. It breaks everything down. It's designed for someone who has absolutely zero experience. I thought if I was to create a training that I would give to my parents to go through and help them understand Bitcoin, what would that be? That's what that training is called, the $5 million Bitcoin. Scan that, get it, give it to someone that you care about, that you love. It's completely free. It's completely and utterly free. So you can get access to that. Secondly, subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the channel. And don't only subscribe to this one, go and subscribe to every single Bitcoin channel that you love. It's very, very important to do so. Right. I have someone here. Let's have a look. Will, how are you? Will, if you're speaking, we can't hear you. You need to adjust your microphone. Travis said he watched all of the training videos. Thanks for the info. You're very welcome. Share the training. Share it with anyone you love. Scan the code and share the link to anyone you love. Heisenberg said, well, I'm not, I'm going to try you in a second, but your audio, let's try again. Hold on. Oh, he's gone. Right. Uh, Heisenberg Bad said that the real problems are the shitcoins. They shift the attention to Bitcoin from Bitcoin to scams like ETH. I don't want you to worry about that. Like I said, 1%. Think about what you've just said. You're worrying about shit coins. I'm talking about 1% of assets moving Bitcoin to $7.3 million a coin. Think about that. Think about that. You're worried about shit coins. And this time round, the SEC has created such ambiguity. There is not going to be a VC that is interested in taking the risk because they'll be sued. Because the SEC has done a great job at this, at creating the issues of whether or not anyone should be involved in pumping these shit coins. That's what caused it last time. Will, are you there?
Yes, thing comes through now. Okay, yeah.
I can hear you now. I can see you too. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad about you.
Fantastic. How can I help?
Yeah, no, nothing at all, mate. Just bullish as fuck like yourself. Love the content. Just obviously, even with the multiples that the Bank of America put out, although a lot of people think it's unreal, but when you take in the context, 1% in the scale of things, what the fuck is 1% really? But
No,
even like I said in the chat, even if you take that only 10%, that's still almost a million per Bitcoin.
it's insane. It's insane. It's insane. Imagine that. Just a tenth of 1% of those assets goes into Bitcoin, and Bank of America's right. It's like you're looking at $1 million a coin.
Yeah. And with BlackRock and Fidelity and everybody else now on the back end of it, and like you said, it's the green light that's just gone ahead with it. So
Yep.
why? What would stop it? That's my question. In your opinion?
Exactly. That's the right question to ask. What could actually stop this, right? And the only thing that could stop this is regulatory blocking of adoption. And they can't really block adoption, as in like I can't stop you getting access to Bitcoin, but what I can stop is Coinbase giving you access to Bitcoin, right? I can stop your wire from your bank account going to Coinbase if I'm the government. They're not gonna, they can't do that, right? And even if they were going to do that, BlackRock's filing for an ETF. What does that tell you about the conversations that are going on behind the scenes?
But on the flip side of that, that's if you're looking at Coinbase, what in the US, it's a global network.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
global arbitrage says, well, if you're going to stop yourself, well, then we're going to open the gates. Look at China; they're letting Hong Kong in, and so on and so forth.
Exactly. This is not stoppable. The main question here is which country is going to be the preeminent provider of Bitcoin services. And I think it's going to be the USA, because the way the USA works is very, very simple. As long as your assets are controlled within the borders of the USA, you can do whatever the fuck you want to do. That's all they care about. They don't care about your assets being in Bitcoin or real estate or the stock market or whatever. As long as they're controllable within the borders of the United States, that's what's important. That's why America's got the best capital markets in the world.
Anything in your opinion would stop it?
And like I said, the only thing that can stop it at this point is regulatory slowdown. And regulatory is actually going in the opposite direction. It's in the US. And by the way, the reason why being a Brit, and I still only talk about US regulation, is because the US has the best capital markets in the world. As much as I love the United Kingdom, it is fucking irrelevant when it comes to capital markets. All of the capital market and upcoming technology happens in the USA, and then it floods everywhere else. So no, I at this point I can't see anything currently standing in its way that's going to stop it, especially once the ETF is launched.
And what about the ETF? So if going by the trend, then what is it? They've got to give notice in 45 days of the due date. So if they refuse the first iteration, they approve the second one then? So when do you think that's launched?
It depends. Remember, the SEC doesn't approve ETFs. What they do is they deny them, right? So what that means is something has to be so wrong with that application that the SEC goes, no, this is not going to be safe for the public. Therefore, we can't allow this application through. I don't know whether you heard the CEO of the CBOE, the Chicago Board of Options Exchange, on CNBC the other day. He literally came out and said, we are going to give the SEC everything they want to get this through. This is not like Coinbase or Grayscale coming out and saying this is a new companies. This is the CBOE saying this at this point.
Yeah, so they used the change in tax was the surveillance to make sure the watch trade and all that stuff. So they changed that slightly to match whatever the requirement was. So basically, there's no reason to deny because we've just satisfied your requirements, basically.
Exactly, yeah. They were already saying whatever the SEC says that they want, we're going to give them. The SEC's got no choice. The SEC is not designed to prevent new assets coming up. That if that was the case, America wouldn't work anymore. American financial markets wouldn't work anymore. The SEC has done a good job, because imagine if there was a spot Bitcoin ETF before this, and it was Binance that was being used to do the transactions, or it was FTX that was being used to do the transactions. Like, you look at what happened to FTX. I think the SEC had perfect reasoning to say no up till now.
Yeah, the other thing as well that I heard today, whether it's true or not, I don't know, that BlackRock missed the initial ETF in gold. So this is almost like they want the first bite of the cherry with Bitcoin. They're not going to miss it. They're not going to miss the gold rush.
Of course.
Second time around.
Of course. And I think that this is, I don't know, like, this is a huge opportunity. This is a once in a species opportunity. This is not a once in a lifetime. Like I said, once in a generation would be like my dad buying a bunch of properties and then never being able to buy any again until my generation comes around. That happened, right? I can own 10 properties just like my dad could own 10 properties. But your children and my grandchildren and your grandchildren will never, ever be able to own 10 Bitcoin. This is phenomenal. Chris, welcome.
What's going on?
What up, Chris?
What's going on? I wanted to let you guys know that I want to ask you if you think I'm gonna give you my opinion. I want to know what you think. So I think that there's a bunch of corporations already purchasing Bitcoin. And I want to know if you think that BlackRock is already purchasing Bitcoin. And before you answer, I just tweeted that, 20,000 Bitcoin has been taken off Coinbase in the last 30 days, which is why I'm thinking, for this amount of Bitcoin to be taken off exchanges, in the last 30 days, I think something is brewing. So I want to know what your thoughts are on that. And do you think these companies or corporations are already purchasing more Bitcoin?
I think before Larry Fink opened his mouth, they were buying Bitcoin well before that.
Yeah, I personally don't think corporations at this point, like BlackRock, for example, have any reason to stockpile Bitcoin. They're not going to announce that we're filing an ETF and then try and acquire the Bitcoin. At this point, they've got what they've got, and now they need to wait until the ETF starts trading, and then they can start acquiring the Bitcoin for the fund. They can't pre-acquire the Bitcoin before a fund is approved. So someone else is doing this. It might be a family office. It might be a private institution. It might be hedge funds trying to front run the Bitcoin ETF or whatever. But as far as corporations go, I think we got to look at corporations and investment institutions as two different things at this point. Like BlackRock is an investment institution, right? Even though, it's a corporation, it's an investment institution. A corporation is like MicroStrategy. Do I think that there are MicroStrategies out there trying to buy Bitcoin? No, I don't.
20,000 in the last 30 days, because I know the ETF filing they're going to be using Coinbase. So like all this Bitcoin coming off exchanges, they're going to be using Coinbase, and it's 20,000 Bitcoin, and that's just in the last 30 days. So it's like trying to piece together who could be purchasing from Coinbase, but it could be
anyone. It could be anyone. It could literally be anyone. It's only a few $1 billion. Right, there are trillions of dollars flowing around the world. This is only a few $1 billion that we're talking about here. So we're gonna do another. Me and Chris have been arguing about real estate and Bitcoin and this, that, and the other. So we're gonna do another live stream after I do my video on and post that on my channel. We'll do a live stream and talk about the idea of, do you take capital now and put it into real estate and wait for the cash flow to acquire the Bitcoin, which I think is the dumbest idea right now, or do you just go and buy the Bitcoin straight? So we're going to have a discussion on that in a few days' time.
Absolutely.
Anything else, guys? Will, anything else?
No. Just glad to join the stream. I'll definitely on to the next one.
Any message you got for everyone who's listening?
Yes, absolutely. Buy Bitcoin, shut the fuck up, and get absolutely fabulously wealthy.
I love it. Chris, you got any messages for anyone who's watching?
Just stack some more Bitcoin and chill. I'll talk to you soon. Much love, brother.
All right, guys. I love you guys. Right. So everyone, listen, there's only 3. Take everything I've said. If you need to go through this again, go through it again. But understand, as Will said, there's only 3 rules to Bitcoin, right? Step number 1, you buy Bitcoin. Step number 2, you shut the fuck up. And step number 3, you get fabulously wealthy. Understand everything here. Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to every Bitcoin channel you love. Scan that QR code and send that training to anyone who you think needs to understand Bitcoin, your parents, your brother, your sister, your friends, etc., etc. It's completely free, designed start to finish for people who have the least amount of experience whatsoever. Understand this thesis. Not a lot of capital needs to move into Bitcoin for Bitcoin to get to the numbers that I'm saying. This is not unrealistic.